The first semester of the Master in Landscape program, led by Prof.Divya Shah and Anjali Jain, is referred to as the Foundation Studio. In this preliminary semester, we focus on the primeval entity that we refer to as a forest. Forests are extremely complex, layered, and varied in terms of ecology, chronology, and the human narratives that define them. This semester is broadly divided into two parts, the first being recording and representing, and the second being interpreting and analyzing. We began our semester with the process of seeing and recording various landscapes. In this process, we emphasized on aspects such as light, shadow, form, spatial quality, and others, and mainly kept our representations through the medium of charcoal. Next, each of us had chosen a forest that resonated with us, be it through some sort of recent memory or a recent visit. We began to study this forest in more detail.
In attempts to further understand the complex forest that we visited, the sketches drawn in the previous exercises were converted into sections. We started to understand the scale, terrain, and the quality of the ground that we all experienced while still staying true to the characteristics of the forest. Through this exercise, we began to understand the characteristics of the vegetation present in every area visited. The different layers of vegetation, change in density of foliage, basic structure of the trees found, distribution and presence of ground cover were recorded. To further understand the forest from another point of view, we collected stories and tales about the wildlife and the people closely associated with the forest. Through these descriptions of the forest, we developed an understanding of the close relationship of man with forests. The journey we took through a part of the forest was then recollected, and the sketches and sections made in the previous exercises, along with the larger sections, are arranged to depict the sequence of events and associated personal experiences. Basic observations that were recorded in the sections and sketches formed the base for further investigation in the following exercises.
In correlating systems, we try to understand the forest at various scales as part of a larger complex system. For this, we started studying multiple layers within the forest, such as climate, geology, soil, hydrology, vegetation type, etc. We simultaneously try to understand the lay of the land by cutting sections through the map at different scales. Here we paid attention to the altitude, gradient of slope, aspect, orientation, ridges and valleys, where the streams and rivers are formed. From here, we correlated to its vegetation type and tried to understand why a certain type of forest exists where it does. For example, why is one part of the forest dry deciduous and the other moist deciduous and another part scrubland? Is it related to the altitude, proximity to water, gradient or slope? Lastly, we studied specific keystone fauna species, their behavior and habitat. This helped us understand the interconnectivity between different subsystems, and we stopped seeing the forest as a bound entity. We realized that the forest is part of a larger system made up of several complex layers that we learn to observe, overlay, and dissect.
Studying the fauna, their habitat, migration pattern, and behavioral pattern led us to various connections beyond the forest boundaries. It helped us to identify and analyze the link with the larger network and its crucial systems. We asked questions like, why does this system continue? What are the conditions which support the system? Is it the vegetation or the topography? Is there any specific fauna corridor that exists? If it does, what are the systems which support this corridor? Such questions allowed us to zoom out and study the larger system. These aspects weren't just based on the data that we studied, but it even derived from our own personal experience within the forest, which led us to either study a specific ecosystem of varying scale or study specific fauna and flora crucial to that system.
After studying different systems in the forest, here are different narratives which we came up to convey our journey through the forest, where we looked at different scales within and beyond the forest. Some of us looked at factors such as seasonal marshland formations, different conditions of it, various slopes, dense forest, or plantation. Through fragile ecosystem by tracing wetness, expansion of the forest through riparian corridor and rocky outcrop, a mixture of different experiences. Some are tangible and some are intangible connections. by tracing butterfly habitat through different conditions of the forest, moist deciduous, riparian edge, agricultural land. Journey through river-dominated coastal wetlands through mudflats and sandflats. We understood that there are some crucial parts of the forest which are critical to its health and survival. This helped us to bring together our entire research and express our discoveries through sections and photomontages.
In the final exercise, certain points were identified during our journey through the forest. These points would allow us to observe the different forest systems and the scales within which they function. On pausing at these points, we could follow the migration of the inhabitants of the forest, the change in vegetation along the water bodies, valleys, the alpine meadows, and the old growth forests. They also express the seasonality within the different ecosystems and the sheer expanse of the habitats within the forest. Thus, through a deeper understanding of the unique ecosystems and processes of the forest, we were able to extend the idea of the forest beyond our perception of it and eventually bridge the gap between humans and forests.
Despite this semester being conducted entirely in a remote manner, we were able to participate in various conversations and gain lots of valuable insights with conversations with various experts in the field, such as Professor Deepa Maheshwari, author supervisation from Gurukul Botanical Sanctuary, and Professor Dilip Takuna. In this semester, we were able to gain a crucial understanding of forest systems and ecology as a whole, which are lessons that we feel have built a strong foundation of learning for us, which we would carry on with us throughout our entire journey in this process.